What's going on, everybody? I'm BobbyFi, back with my man Eric Sheets-Haber. Happy Tuesday. We are going to be bringing you a small but certainly an interesting slate. We definitely have options now that we have I don't want to say a new star because this guy has been a star forever, but a new superstar in the DFS sense that is sort of outshined all the other superstars. In fact, maybe outshined going through a 5-game stretch that we've never seen. And looking at the slate at a quick glance, that's what it's going to come down to: is how we pay up, who we pay up for, how we do it, if we want to pay up. That's what we're going to look at today. I didn't play much yesterday. Had a little bit of success on DK. I'm sorry, on FanDuel. A little bit of lack of success on DK. Sounds like Sheets had a little bit of a slow day. But Sheets, what are your thoughts? What happened yesterday, and then lead me into today.
Yeah, so yesterday, it's funny, I even said this in the slate preview. It was going to be an interesting day because they have this Micro Millions thing going on where the big main where they paid $100K was only $4. So I was expecting there to be a lot of people that gave, $150 max to try last night, and I was one of them. And I don't want to say I picked the wrong day to do it, but it was an impossible day to really get what you wanted right because you had some news that just kept on just pushing out and pushing out, like Reggie Jackson just kept pushing out and pushing out and pushing out, even past, quote unquote lock. So it was really, really difficult to turn it into a good 150 max attempt by me. I mean, it was a little frustrating because, the stuff that we went over yesterday, it was very good until all the other value opened up, turning it into nothing. I mean, you needed like 8x to even be in the ball game yesterday. So my Tim Hardaway Jr. play would have been great, like on any other slate. But hey, that's what makes this. That's what makes it hard.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
So today it's funny.
We're not always weighing. We're at this point of the season, especially when there's people sitting and whatnot right before the All-Star break. Everybody's tired. I think we're not only we're not trying to get those great scores anymore. We need to have nearly perfect scores. You need to nail the exact right guys in these games, and we're going to try and do it tonight. So, Sheets, this is a 4-game slate that to me feels like there's enough decisions where I want to multi-enter like crazy.
Well, so it's funny. So your first thing, your intro to this was, well, we have a real superstar here and whatever it is, and it's funny, you pull up the slate and. You got Giannis in 140 billion point total in what could be a competitive enough game where he could play minutes. And then you have Harden with no Capella and no Westbrook. And then you have like LeBron on the slate. And if it were 3 weeks ago and Bobby led in with, we got this superstar that we all have to look at, you would think it'd be one of those guys, right? But like Bobby alluded to, there's a guy who's just from an efficiency perspective, just really feeling it. Let's just put it that way. And Damian Lillard basically hasn't missed a shot since the Eisenhower administration. So we're gonna have to talk about this.
I mean, I don't know what we're like because the initial game, and you had the overtime against Golden State, and you had no McCollum that night, and all that, yada yada yada. Okay, you can write that one out even, but. We're at 6 games in a row now that I don't remember a player having a 6-game stretch, and these were not good matchups. You look at it versus Utah the last time out, he puts up 79. At the Lakers, he puts up 82. And we'll go game by game, but I'm just thinking if we're gonna keep getting Damian Lillard at low ownership, anyone who doesn't think that hot streaks are real, they're out of their minds, and anyone who doesn't know that they come to an end is out of their minds. So. Yeah, maybe he only puts up 50-something tonight and has a slow game and Carmelo should be back and all that. When I see a guy who's this red hot, and I have no reason to think that if they're in a tough spot, which they are tonight, that he wouldn't try and just take over completely again because they're trying to fight for the playoffs. This is not a normal situation. This is like playoff version of a guy because you need everything from him. Right now, they're making their playoff push. I mean, everybody's talking about New Orleans and Memphis. Right now, they're a game and a half back, and that's the way he's playing it. So as long as Lillard's like that, and again, we'll get back to it, it's just a matter of we have 3.5 terrific superstars in great spots, and we've got one really underpriced superstar. So it's going to be really tricky in terms of build. What I would suggest just initially before we go game by game is try and correlate as best you can. Try and find a story that makes the most sense if you're going to be, depending on which guys you're going to be using, because I really think that it's going to be tricky to just nail the exact perfect plays, even though it's a smaller slate. I would rather try to look at maybe mini stacking or playing around these superstars that we end up playing.
Well, one thing that I want to just throw out there regarding Lillard, and this cuts both ways. On the one hand, I mean, since I heard that since in the last 3 weeks or month, whatever it was, since he's gotten quote unquote hot, I mean, his 3-point percentage has gone from a 35% up to 45%, right? So you could look at that one of two ways. On the one hand, yeah, I mean, that type of efficiency may not be sustainable. But the thing is as I've described in other videos, when you have guys that can create their own usage rates, where they always have the ball and they can decide how many shots they take, honestly, your hot streak concept is very relevant, because if the guy like that is going to start to shoot well, that just means he's going to shoot more. You know what I mean? So even if, you can't tell Damian Lillard that he's going to regress to the mean. You know what I mean? You're not going to be able to tell him that your 45% 3-point shooting percentage is not sustainable. In his head, and he's got the ball every possession, he's hot and he is taking over. You know what I mean? So that's kind of offsets the math idea of, well, he's got his efficiency has to regress, and his price is catching up to him, because when the ball's in Lillard's hands, he's going to decide how often he shoots the ball.
Yeah, and the thing is, like, I'm not worried. Like, I don't think he's going to shoot 50% every night from 3-point range, but I also don't think that's even that big of an outlier. Like, he's going to go through 10-game stretches where he shoots over 50%. It's going to happen all the time. He shot nearly 40% 3 years of his career. We've got guys like Steph out there who shoot 45% on average, and with shooting a million threes. Lillard, when he gets going, is one of these guys. So it's just an interesting thing to talk about, because we've got some other guys in great spots, and I guess we should go game by game, and we'll come back and revisit the superstar conversation at the end.
Okay.
The first
one.
So,
I mean, the first game, I mean, just straight out of the box, right? I mean,
yeah.
So straight out of the box, you have, two teams that play, I guess, both of them are the top 5 in pace, in the whole NBA. And as a result, it's a 245 point total. And, the spread is close enough where there's a real possibility that you can get 36 plus minutes out of Giannis if things work out the way that they could. So this is where it starts. Bobby's point is very prescient in that, if you want to just try to find, good correlations, this is a really good place to start talking about it, because, if you want to play Giannis, who certainly looks like a tremendous play, you're going to have to figure out the best way to do it with New Orleans guys. So I guess that is going to be the main driver of the discussion. And, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 guys that all I can make cases for. And, all of you can probably figure out who they are. It's going to be, it looks like, I guess, the 5 starters, right? Zion, Ingram, Favors, Drew Holiday, Ball, and Hart. And Ball. Sorry about that. Like those 5. So if you want to, you could pick the lowest owned of those guys, or you could pick the, a good combination of 2, like you pick Lonzo with one of the forwards, or Drew with one of the forwards, or something like that. Remember, you're paying, it's not like these guys are cheap, really, except for Favors, $4,900. That'd be interesting. I bet he's probably.
They're affordable, though. This is the cheapest.
Yeah, okay. So we'll think about it, because we're going to have to figure out if we want to get Harden in or Lillard in also, right? Or at least one of them. So let's see. I mean, who do you like between these numbers? I really literally have all 5 of them the same, if you want to know the truth.
Yeah, well, starting with the Milwaukee side, at first glance, like when I first looked at the slate, I just thought Giannis was the easiest, best play on the slate, including Harden. One, it's a dream matchup, all that stuff. Perfect pace environment, road game against a home team that's feisty, that's going to probably hang in there with you. You're down at least, 1 man in George Hill. Now, I know Harden has no Westbrook and all that, but you save a little money with Giannis. He plays the forward position instead of the guard, which is what I like the guards today. But when you look through all the stars, it's actually tricky to decide between Harden, Giannis, and Dame. I do like that Giannis is going to be lower owned than he should be. Usually in this spot, even on a big slate, we might see Giannis at 40 or 50% ownership, but we have no Westbrook in Houston, so that changes everything. But I still want to have a heavy exposure, which means you're right. I probably do have to run it back with somebody significant. The insignificant guy I want to mention is, I think, a really interesting one that no one's going to play. if there's a limited lack of value outside of the Houston situation, I wouldn't mind in a part of a stack or in addition to those Houston guys throwing JJ Redick into a stack with Giannis on the other side and one of these other New Orleans Pelicans, maybe even two. The reason I throw Redick out there is just the way to beat Milwaukee is from the outside. I do think you could see Redick in a really important game get extra minutes. Now, I know he was hurt. He missed the last game. I still expect his minutes to be in the 20s. There's certainly upside on the 20-minute projection that we've got for him pretty much across the industry. I think he could end up playing 24 to 28 minutes, maybe even more if he gets it going. And at 3,700, he could be one of those sneaky value plays that could help you win a tournament. Not overall a guy I love to play, but at 3,700, when we're looking for even extra value because we want to play a couple superstars, I think he's interesting. The main play for me outside of that would be Brandon Ingram. Brandon Ingram and Drew Holiday I would have very close. Now, Ingram I give a little bit the edge to because he plays the forward spot. There's multiple ways for him to get you there. You're going to have him matched up with Giannis, unfortunately, for part of the game, and you're going to have Zion matched up with Giannis for some of the game, as well as Favors, I think, even a little bit. It's going to be a weird situation. But I like Ingram because I think he's the best pure catch-and-shoot three-point shooter they have. He's been the best shooter this year. So, again, I'm trying to beat them from the outside. I do like Drew Holiday. I think these prices are really, really fair. And I think you're going to get lower ownership because everybody wants to play up for these studs. And then I think a lot of people are going to play Favors and Zion. I think I might be underweight on Favors in this one. Don't really need a true center in this matchup. The minutes have been trending the wrong way because Zion can play the 5. Last 3 games with Zion playing more minutes. He's at 23, 19, and 23 minutes. I think that's, that putting him in that 24 range versus the 26 to 20 to 30 range changes enough for me. I would love to play Zion here and in this type of pace environment. I think he feels very safe. It is not the kind of matchup where I want to try and attack a guy who's going to be matched up with Giannis too much. And it's not like we're getting a discount on him. So when everybody plays Zion, and I like Zion, don't get me wrong, I think I'm leaning a little bit more the Ingram Holiday route. And I actually like Lonzo Ball in this game. It's going to play lightning quick. The one thing about Milwaukee is while they're good defensively, they play fast. They're willing to play really fast with you. They have a different mindset. It's sort of like an offensive team. They try and get as many defensive possessions in the game as possible. They feel that that's their real strength, and I agree with them. I mean, obviously, proof's in the pudding. But assuming this game stays close, you could potentially even play Drew and Ingram in this game with Zion as a different run back. As of right now, though, I would rank it slightly with Ingram, followed by Holiday, then Zion, and then Ball, then Favors, then that's where I'm at. Favors, the price is tempting, but I feel like he's going to get a lot of ownership because the exposure to this game, when really do we know that he's even going to be on the court and running enough? I don't know. I need to get back to you on the Favors one, but as of right now, he's the least interest. Having said that, I still have him in over a quarter of my tournament lineups as of this moment. So I definitely like this New Orleans side today.
I definitely think that if Favors is popular, which currently he looks to be really popular, I do see, as you're kind of alluding to, situation that again, depends on what happens in the game, but like if Redick gets hot, for example, or Hart or somebody like that gets hot, I could see them playing Zion at the 5 and Favors might not even close. You know what I mean? I think that's very possible. So at high ownership, I think I agree. I prefer kind of not the Favors is no upside at that price, but I prefer the guys that are a little more volatile. So I would try probably choose between Drew and Lonzo and between Zion and Ingram. Again, not play either of those kind of pairs together. You know what I mean? Like no Drew and Lonzo, no Zion and Ingram. Maybe, again, if Lonzo's going to be the lowest owned of all of them, I got no problem with him. He's not shy about taking threes nowadays. He's certainly better at it.
One thing, Lonzo's been spectacular in real-life basketball since Zion got there. I think it's benefited his game the most. Like, forget the actual numbers for a minute, although the numbers have been good too. He's actually had the most consistent production with Lonzo there of any of these guys. So I feel very good about Drew if people are going to look the other way. And this feels like the kind of game where you could see a triple-double type of performance. I'm sorry for Ball, not Drew. It is hard because they've got a lot of weapons now. But at the same time, while they have a lot of weapons, the usage is going to be pretty condensed between those guys, along with JJ Redick running off screens and hopefully making you 6 threes. That's where I'm looking.
Okay. All right. I mean, again, it's gonna be an interesting price discussion how to allocate funds today because you already see that once you put a second New Orleans guy in, for example, it becomes hard, which is why I think your Reddit call is pretty good. You know what I mean? Like if you want to get some correlation and stack this game a little bit, there's I think that could be the way that you want to do it actually.
It also leans into like maybe, I mean, look, it's going to be hard to fade the next guy in the next game, but we'll talk about it. Maybe we leave that up there for the moment, and then we can try and figure out how we would have to do it if we wanted to play Harden too.
All right, so Charlotte against Houston. All right, so there's no Capella, there's no Westbrook, so James Harden is going to pop as just a ridiculous play, and yeah, that's just the way it goes. But there's certainly risk. I mean, it's a 15-point freaking spread. It's kind of amazing when you think about it. That
oh yeah, I can't believe it's I had a 13, but yeah, it's still that is a little exaggerated.
It's actually kind of amazing without Capella and Westbrook, it's still 15. You know what I mean? It's kind of nuts. And I also think that. Not that this is going to matter too much, but Charlotte doesn't really play as fast as they used to. So it could be a slower paced game than people might imagine, I suppose. So I guess there's risk. I mean, I think the biggest risk, and I hate to put it this way, is the minutes risk. I think if I had to rank the level of risk, I mean, if they're going to project it for 38 minutes, for example, and this game does become disgusting, which it could. Sure. If he gets 34 minutes or 32 minutes or got 30 minutes, 28, you got a big problem with a 12K price tag. You just do, especially with these other guys that can light up the score sheet. So, yeah, he's certainly a tough fade. I'm going to say that. But there's certainly risk.
It's interesting with the Rockets because we have to deal with this new look Rockets, what they're trying to do. So the word on the street is that Capella's on the trading block. They just became the first team in NBA history to win, or in NBA modern history. I don't know what that really means. I guess that means over the last 50 years or so, with no player who played in the game above 6'6". And that looks to be the case again tonight. So take that what it means, but it's like they're going with this small thing. It means a lot of threes are probably going to get jacked up. It should mean there should be some variance in terms of the supporting cast outside of Harden. And who's productive. I mean, those rebounds have to go somewhere. Usually it goes to a guy like Westbrook and Tucker. Tonight you would think Tucker, but he's been a little bit slow lately. Man, this is a tough one to figure out because there's also a lot of –
One second. Sorry.
A lot of valuable prices on the plays on the Charlotte side that just seem too cheap. Like you've got, I mean, hey, since I mentioned the thing about Miles Bridges, the guys look terrific, and I certainly don't mind going back to him. I love P.J. Washington at this price. I love Devontae Graham at this price. A good price on Rozier as well. Malik Monk is going to get minutes. So there's a lot of options to choose from as a run back. And I think that you want to start your lineups, though. Like Austin Rivers projected only around 30-ish minutes, 30 to 32, depending on what site you're looking at. Now, there's certainly a lot of upside for him in those minutes, a lot of upside for him to play more minutes, I should say. And I think he's very safe. So I feel like Rivers is a guy you feel very comfortable with as a value saver. Ben McLemore is the higher upside, more volatile play that you could also play. And I don't think there's a problem playing them together just because they're so cheap and the way they're playing these lineups. If you're going to get 30 minutes from these guys, it doesn't really matter to me that they're going to be on the court at the same time, slightly low usage. There's just rebounds to go around. There's plays to go around. They're going to get open threes. People are going to trap Harden, especially tonight. So I'm sort of ranking my Rockets as Harden, Rivers, followed by McLemore, followed by Tucker. I might end up bumping Tucker up a little bit in the end, but that's pretty much where I have them right now. And then Eric Gordon is not someone who I'm especially excited to play, but I think he's a very reasonable play if you end up in that price range. I just haven't been in that price range very much. How about you?
On a slate like this, where it's 4 games and you needed to be a little bit whatever, presuming that Austin Rivers is going to be extremely popular, which I presume he is, I think the reason why he's going to be really popular is because if you play him, it allows you get to Harden, for example. Is it possible that one way to be, I guess, a little different is to play Rivers in non-Harden lineups? You know what I mean? Like play Rivers along with Dame and Giannis, for example. Because I think it's going to be so natural for people to say, okay, I'm going to take Rivers so that I can play Harden. But Rivers on his own is, it's 3,600. He's going to be playing a bunch of minutes. So maybe you could get a little bit of construction difference by playing Rivers but without Harden.
Yeah, I think that's actually what you would do is you play if you're going to skip Harden at all tonight. I think you want to try and play Rivers and McLemore. McLemore would be the priority one because he's the kind of guy who would get hot enough to where it could slow Harden down from having a crazy game, and he could have a crazy game at McLemore. In fact, I think I might even bump McLemore up a little bit. But this is definitely where you want to get your value from. And while it might be chalky, if you're not going to play a Harden in a lineup, I wouldn't mind seeing Rivers, McLemore, potentially even Gordon in the same lineup. And then you can, spend up for the other two big guys. But again, it is a hard fade with Harden, especially as he's coming back into his own. He's looking like the old Harden that we love and trust. And there's really no reason in this matchup that he shouldn't put up 65 to basically to 80 fantasy points, with the exception of potential blowout. And even if that happens, I'm going to bet that he's the reason why. So it's a tricky fade. I mean, we'll get into it at the end, but I have these guys.
I have a Charlotte tape, so I'll wait for you to do.
Go for your Charlotte.
You do Charlotte first because I don't want you to.
Okay, so my Charlotte, I definitely think that PJ Washington is ridiculously underpriced. I'm ready to go back to him now. He's the cheaper between he and Bridges. I've been very happy with the production from Bridges lately. We had Washington who missed the last two games actually, so that's partly why you could even argue that Bridges was stayed especially hot or whatever. But he played great with him the last time they were both in the game too. He had 40 fantasy points against Washington. I like Bridges as well, but I would probably go PJ Washington number 1, Devontae Graham number 2. I like Devontae Graham a lot. Number 3 would be Rozier, and then Rozier and Bridges probably would be tied there with just a little bit of. I love Malik Monk. I just am trying to figure out if there's going to be room for him tonight. I wish he was a little bit cheaper, to be honest with you, but I do like that he should be getting some minutes. What is your?
All right. So my thoughts on Charlotte is just a little different. So, Houston's going to be playing the the PJ Tucker at the 5 deal, I imagine, just like they have been. And there were several times earlier in this year where Charlotte, you were trying to decide between whether you wanted to play Bismack Biyombo. He's not in right now, but Bismack Biyombo and Zeller back and forth. And I remembered at the time when I was doing the analysis that you have to know when's the time to play Zeller, when's the time to play Biz, and when they're playing really small, where it becomes like a Marvin Williams game. So for me, I'm going to take a shot at Marvin Williams at 3K at the bare minimum on for Charlotte on a 4-game slate, and hope that analysis kind of proves right. That this could be the game where, if they're playing against a team that's playing really, really small, that he gets those extra minutes. I mean, at 3K, I don't know, probably other people might pick up on this, but he'd be the guy on top of the guys that you mentioned that I would take a shot on. And I really have no argument with anything that you said. I mean, I think Devontae Graham, again, he's very frustrating to me, but he's certainly going to get minutes until the game blows out, if it blows out. And I like your PJ Washington to keep going back to him, especially now at 4,600. But I want to do a little more research on this Marvin Williams thing. But that's my initial take on Charlotte, actually.
I think it's sharp, actually, and I think it's funny because I think Cody Zeller, for even reasonable reason, is actually, I don't know if he's gonna end up with ownership. I actually, looking at it now, maybe that's a mistake because I agree this game could go, and those guys could literally just be phased out entirely. But at the same time, I could see Zeller actually having like one of his better games in this type of environment. So
yeah, right.
So if he's going to be low owned, I have interest in Zeller. If he's going to be high owned, I don't. As of early this morning, we've got him at low ownership projected. We'll see how that ends up, but I think he's an interesting play if he is low owned. I love I think Marvin Williams could be a really creative option, actually. Not to mention that you can beat Houston from the outside with these threes. I mean, because of how small they are, they have to sort of stay in the paint a little bit more than they want to. The only thing that worries me about the Williams thing is that I could easily see that role going to PJ Washington or Miles Bridges instead of Marvin Williams. But I do think that at no ownership, I'm certainly willing to take that shot. I don't know if I'll do it in my high buy-in tournaments, but I think it's a really good call, and you definitely got me to note him.
All right. So it's a matter of construction of what you want to do. I mean, you want to play Harden. I think that if you do play Harden, I think it's probably wise to play some Charlottes. Let's put it that way.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, you do have downside minutes risk from Harden, and if you want to rely on those 32 plus minutes or 35 plus minutes, whatever it is, I really think you're going to have to find somebody from Charlotte to do something in this game, whether that be Rozier or Devontae Graham or PJ Washington or 2 or 3 of them. If you want to know the truth. I mean, if you really want to keep this close, I mean, you're going to need more than just one of those guys to have a good game if you want to know the truth. So that's I guess that's what I would end up doing, is probably playing Harden with a couple of those guys that you mentioned.
Yeah. I think that's it definitely is interesting. You ready to move over to Portland?
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. Okay. So what's the what do you think the ownership? Let's have some fun. What do you think the ownership is going to be on Senor Lillard?
I think that in the high buy-in tournaments, he's going to be higher owned. I know that sounds weird because you'd think that like people wouldn't game chase, but I think that when you see that the guy's going to be low owned, they'll flock a little bit more towards him, which is still probably going to be just 10 to 15% unless we get some other extreme value. You also have other things that make this tricky. Like there's others. I mean, Carmelo and McCollum are both priced so cheap that it actually makes you want to play them. And obviously on this slate, I don't think you want to like start your builds by, hey, let's try and play Lillard with one of those guys. That just seems a little odd for this particular slate. So it makes Lillard even lower owned. I love the idea of going back to Lillard, but I have to say Carmelo revenge also feels pretty good. Going back to Denver, not even revenge, call it whatever you will. He should be healthy and rested. Didn't want to play against the Lakers, too much emotion in that game. I think that I don't know. I think that, I'm willing to take a shot here. I know he's played one game since then. He played the game against Utah the next night, but you got a ton of minutes out of Carmelo against Denver, who's a little weaker against the wings than they usually are because of the injuries. I'm sort of flip-flopping, but I think I have interest in having one of Lillard, Melo, or McCollum in my lineups tonight. I'm sorry, Lillard, Melo, and McCollum. And I just think that Lillard, all the things being stacked against him and him being low owned, I might just have to make just that move. Because you can literally do whatever you want if you just play Lillard tonight. I really don't think maybe 10% would be the maximum I could see him being owned unless some other crazy value opens up.
Yeah, one of the sites I'm looking at has him listed at 3%. So
I think it's possible.
Yeah, I think it's possible too. But just to kind of clarify what you mentioned, I think it's an important point that, you said I would want one of McCollum, Lillard, and Anthony, and the point of it is that, piggybacking on what I said earlier, is that there are only so many shots to go around, and if Lillard is hot, the other guys are not going to get anything. But if he's not, then the other guys will. You know what I mean? So, like, if you want Carmelo to get shots, it's kind of silly to say this, but if you want to fade Lillard, like, you need to fade a 4% guy. You know what I mean? But I think that it is probably wise to, this should go without saying that I wouldn't play 2 of these guys together. Let's put it that way.
That's where I'm at. It's funny, I said not on this slate because it's only a 4-game slate, but I do think there's enough good options where it's hard to justify why you would want to play them together unless you were just fully game stacking for some reason.
And meanwhile, let's not forget that probably the best, I don't want to say the best play, the guy just never seems to fail nowadays is freaking Whiteside.
Yeah,
Whiteside's the freaking nuts. I mean, Whiteside's insane. I can't believe he's going to make it through the trade deadline. But maybe he won't. Who knows?
He's a losing player. Look what happens, man. Portland was much better last year without him, with Nurkic. Look what happens to Miami. I know they have Butler now, but I mean, these guys who look like they're great players are not great players. Like, Whiteside is not a great player. He's a great talent, but he's not like a star player. I mean, if he was, this team right now, because he's not. I don't know. I just think Whiteside's a fake player. Right? He's going to have no ownership. You can make the argument for him here. I'm not going to be one of the people who buy in. I have to take some stances, so I'm leaving both centers from this game out.
Yeah, so the other one's going to be a lot more popular.
Yeah.
So I guess a little bit of interesting news on Denver is Murray might play, which thankfully means I don't have to worry about Monte Morris, Torrey Craig. Although I did play him the other night, by the way, when you said you were playing him a little bit.
Yeah.
I did play him the other day. And oh, my God, Monte Morris went freaking bananas the other day. But So if Jamal Murray's playing, I'm probably off of all those guys, and I don't know. I'm kind of off of the whole team. If you want to know the truth, I mean, I guess they're fine, but and I guess they're all going to be low owned except for Jokic. So maybe just to throw a low owned guy in, play like a Barton or somebody like that. But nobody seems to be that exciting. But what do you think? I mean, at first, I don't want to play Jokic at high ownership just because, I mean, that salary, I just feel as though I could spend it better somewhere else. It's the best way I could describe it.
Feels like a good spot. I mean, I know Barton's been good the last couple times out, but we tried him so many times. Feels like a good troll spot because the minutes are still going to be there. The offense is still going to go through him a lot. If Murray plays, you got to assume he's going to be limited a little bit. It's not like Gary Harris is going to take up extra shots. So we're also underestimating that we're now without Michael Porter Jr., which probably was the biggest. The more I think about it, I think that Will Barton is a really, really, really good off the board play, like really good, because I think that's the thing that affects him the most is what Michael Porter Jr. was doing, sort of being the a little bit of a version, a guy that could run sort of some of the offense through, who would get all their transition buckets, who could finish at the rim, who could do all these things that Barton sort of used to do. And if you look at it, when you finally lose Porter out of there, you get Barton finally going back to nuts again, even as Gary Harris and some of these other guys have come back. So I think Will Barton is a phenomenal tournament play, like just phenomenal. But I don't know how much of him I end up getting to because of the way the nature of the slate. I just think that's where I would go.
What would you just run him in a lineup with Lillard, you mean?
I would also like to take a quick look at, and I know it's not in Portland, but I think that, I think just him with Lillard would probably be good enough. Look, there's guys like Gary Trent that are going to show up. There's guys. If Jamal Murray's out, I'm happy to go back to Beasley or Torrey Craig. If I'm playing Barton, I'd be more likely to go Craig. If I'm not playing Barton, I'd be more likely to go Beasley. But I do think Will Barton is the overlooked, hey, how did we miss Will Barton scoring 50 against Portland? And I mean, look, not just revenge that he used to play for Portland and all that, but I think he's had a pretty great history against this team. Now, I wish if the game was in Portland, I would give that a little bit more credit. I always think that's when it really matters. But they have trouble defending the wings. Like, let's go with an unowned Will Barton here. The Michael Porter Jr. thing, I think, is big.
Will Barton played for Portland?
Oh yeah, that's where he used to be. They treated him. That's why they really missed on some talent, man, because they treated him like he was a bench guy. And he would be like this guy who could spark. He'd have these quarters where he'd score like 20 real life points. And we'd be like, wow, this guy looks like the best ever. He must be the worst defensive player in history. But then he goes to Denver and everything's fine. Like, I don't know. They kind of missed the boat on him a little bit. But I like Will Barton here. I just think that he's that sneaky guy with upside that no one's going to play with these guys back that I really think is interesting on both sides, FanDuel and DraftKings.
Okay. All right. Going to the last game, San Antonio at Lakers, and I know what's going to happen. I just know what's going to happen.
Really? Because I feel like I know what's going to happen, and I don't think it's going to be popular.
Yeah. There's one of three things are going to happen, and all of them are going to troll. The one thing is just the delayed LeBron 60 real points game, okay, where everybody's expected the other day, and he had to hear about it on Twitter. You know what I mean? That I can't believe you couldn't show up for this game, whatever it is. And whatever it is.
Do you know how emotional, draining that was? Anyway.
I understand. But so on the one hand, it's the LeBron 80 fantasy point game. That certainly has a chance of happening. That's one thing, and that won't be popular. But the other two is the delay freaking DeMar DeRozan in LA game at 0% ownership. I mean, that could be maybe it won't be 0% ownership, but he certainly isn't projecting like he's going to get owned. So that could be one that could bury the slate. And then, like, the real – I mean, I guess it's just the price play. Because, again, I don't like playing him, but maybe I should ignore it. But LaMarcus Aldridge is 6,200?
No, he's 62. That's pretty ridiculous.
I mean, I don't know, man. I mean, I'm sitting here, and he's, like, only 1,200 more than DeJounte Murray. You know what I mean? Like, I'm like I just got a real weird feeling that if you really want to have some fun, you do minimum – or you play one of DeRozan, LeBron, or like LMA, your lineups or something. Have one just need one troll out of those three to get there.
Here's the only problem is I think LeBron is going to have a ton of ownership tonight.
You think so?
I do. I think
Okay.
LeBron and AD will be popular. I think people will play them together.
Ooh.
I mean, I think
I
let me
can't
rephrase
do
this.
that.
They'll try to do that, and they'll play him with Harden. Because
Oh
I
yeah,
think
I'm
Giannis is
looking
the one
at
who
this.
lost.
Yeah, I'm looking at this. They both look really popular.
Yeah. And then you run it, but they're going to run it back with Aldridge. But I love this DeMar DeRozan thing.
Okay.
And I will just want to point out what DeMar DeRozan has been in some sort of narrative-y games, okay? So we've got the since Kobe passed games, unfortunately. Sorry to bring it up, but it's, a reality or whatever. He had the one against Portland against Toronto of all things right before. But anyway, you got 53 against Chicago right after. You got 51 against Utah right after. Now there's been a couple games since then. He's been at 38 and 37, which is not going to kill you with his price, but obviously not what you want. DeMar DeRozan last year put up 65 in the first game he played the Raptors. I believe he put up like 60 in the second one, but I'm not sure on that one. I do think that the guy loves Kobe. The weird thing is, though, like when the emotions come out, it can go in different ways. You might be more timid. You might be more aggressive. For DeRozan, he seems to be – I think he might want to put on a Kobe-like show. I think he's going to do something special for Kobe. I love the idea of playing a low on DeMar DeRozan. Now, I know I've named a lot of players in this slate, so we'll go through the ownership in a minute. But I think it's a really sneaky way to go. And where I'm really struggling is that I like Davis and LeBron a ton in this spot. And I don't know with the other guys that I'm going to be able to necessarily get there. I just feel like if you get Harden and Giannis right, it's going to be hard for these guys to catch up. But at the same time, I could easily see LeBron putting up 75 here. I could easily see Davis putting up 75 here. So it's going to come down to lineup construction, which we're going to be doing a lot, or at least I'll be doing a live show later this afternoon, and hopefully Sheets will join me around 6 Eastern time. I really want to fine tune this because it's going to be tricky when I give you some ownership percentages right now because there's a lot of guys to like for a 4-game slate, which is not the way most 4-game slates play.
Yeah. I feel as though, unfortunately, having gone through this, I don't know what I want to do. I think that we've discussed different ways you can go. I'm just not sure what I want to do.
Today may be an important day where correlation and trying to find a low-owned part of a game that you're interested in where you're attacking from a financial perspective, like maybe playing one of the runbacks or two of them. Maybe it's on Charlotte. Maybe you play and unfortunately they're not going to be unowned, but Miles Bridges will be unowned. So if he's going to be unowned, why not play him and Graham as a run back to Harden or something like that? Or, in the Milwaukee game, I mentioned J.J. Redick as potentially one of the cheaper guys you use along with Holiday or Ingram to play against Giannis. If I'm going to be playing Damian Lillard, you can play Will Barton at no ownership on the other side. And then if I'm the Lakers, you get to play DeRozan on the other side at no ownership. So those are your 4 lineup constructions from the main interest of the high spend ups, in my opinion. Make sense?
Yeah, I'm just thinking about this, like this late game. Like if you do have, for example, like Aldridge in like kind of a chalkier lineup, and like you have kind of guys earlier that are kind of off the board that don't really do as much as you think. I would love to be able to just immediately pivot off of Aldridge and go to DeRozan if possible, but it's difficult.
Yeah. Hard to figure out how to do that one.
Yeah, but even so, like if you have this Giannis stuff, and then even if it's by 8:30, 8:45, you could do something between the Portland, Denver, and the San Antonio Lakers game. I do think DeRozan could be the real. I don't want to say sleeper in the wrong way, but the real pivot, the off the board guy with upside that might be the dude.
Yeah, not to mention, what am I looking at right here? I've got DeMar DeRozan. That's wrong. They've got him versus Charlotte here on my projection system. That's not accurate. Okay. And they've got him projected at 30 minutes, which there is – I don't remember. Has DeMar DeRozan ever played just 30 minutes? Like, I don't know if that's even happened.
Yeah, I have him at 35. So
yeah, that sounds right. And at 35 minutes, even in a tough matchup with skipping narrative, he's in play at 7,700 with the way he's been playing and the shots he's been taking. Even with Aldridge back, he still took 23 shots the other night against the Clips. And by the way, that was his first game back at Staples. Now, he didn't play particularly well outside of the shots. He was 11 for 23 and really didn't do anything, didn't take any threes, didn't get any, only had 2 assists. But But I'll take a guy who's going to shoot the ball 20 plus times tonight at no ownership. So I have some of my ownership projections. Let's see. I'll just see if it maybe it helps narrow at all.
Okay.
Because I think it's going to come down to construction a little bit. So I've got Harden, Rivers, and Giannis at the top. I know that's weird because you have Harden and Giannis, but whatever. That's where I'm at. And part of my love for Giannis is the lack of ownership that I expect him to get. I think he's going to be in the 25% range rather than in the normal 50% range in this type of spot. I love my next tier would be Ben McLemore, PJ Tucker, PJ Washington, and Brandon Ingram. Obviously, Ingram being the only one of those that's somewhat low owned. The next tier for me would be DeRozan, LeBron, Anthony Davis, Devontae Graham, Will Barton, LaMarcus Aldridge, Zion Williamson, Drew Holiday, Terry Rozier, Miles Bridges, and Damian Lillard. And then
go ahead.
Then you have to figure out how to use these guys. Now, there's a lot of guys who aren't going to fit in together, right? So I've just got to find some of my low-owned plays. And as far as my low-owned plays, just to mention, my cheap price plays, Austin Rivers, Ben McLemore, those are the obvious ones. PJ Tucker, obviously.
PJ Washington.
And then we've got PJ Washington. And then we're hoping for some other extra value. The long shot value that we both mentioned, you had Marvin Williams. I said a JJ Redick. Those are guys you could look at. Potentially you could look at a Chris Clemens. Let's find out for sure. I mean, if there's for some reason Rivers doesn't end up playing, which I think he will, but I think you could look. I mean, Chris Clemens then becomes a much, much better play. And then you've got like Malik Monk and Rondo and guys like that. Bryn Forbes. Bryn Forbes is a guy who no one ever plays, by the way, and just seems to be able to, if you need a guy who can get you that 18 to 20, whatever, at least the minutes should be okay. I don't love it, but I'm just throwing it out there because I think I'm going to be reaching for value, trying to get 2 studs in my lineup minimum.
I would like to say that if that the other day, and I think it was the weekend slate, it was a 4-game slate, and I had trouble determining whether I preferred Giannis or Harden, and I ended up going with Giannis. I thought it'd be slightly lower owned. Harden ended up like 50%, and Giannis was 7. Okay. Giannis, they don't play him. They just don't, and most of the time it's for a reason. I mean, you know what I mean? Like when you have to spend 11,000 on someone, but there's a better 11,000 someone. That's what happens. And today with LeBron being, you know, like you said, kind of popular at 10K, Harden being very popular at 10K, then you know what? There's just no way that that Dame's gonna be owned again. Now I'm going through this, you know. Jokic is gonna get ownership at center. You know what I mean? Like
right. By the way, I like this lineup build. What I would do a little bit differently if I was going with this, I think I would throw in. It's hard because you need the center spot. I get it. Yeah, it's a little bit trickier. That actually does make it a little bit different, but I do like that build though quite a bit. I really think it's interesting. I don't love Zion tonight, but I do think it's a really cool build. And you're going to get enough off the board with the Redick play, with Lonzo. I think that's where I would probably just try and change my center and utility a little bit. But
yeah, and once again, I would make note of the lower owned guys that we kind of mentioned, because again, you're going to have to find 1 or 2. You know what I mean? You could certainly get there on construction. You know what I mean? But on a 4-game slate, it's kind of difficult. Mm-hmm. So you're going to have to make kind of sacrifice a couple of projections to the virgins to the fire, so to speak. You know what I mean? And that's just the way it's got to be. And just hope that the guys that you picked maybe have low medians, but good upside. Like I think your Redick play is really, really good, you know, because he gets hot, he'll just keep shooting, and then he'll get extra minutes because he keeps shooting. And PJ Washington, look, as much as my kind of off the board Marvin Williams play makes sense, the exact reason it makes sense is why PJ Washington is probably even a hugely better play. Yeah. Because if they're going to go small and they can get away with playing small at the 5, PJ Washington, you know, is a hell of a lot better than Marvin Williams.
Especially as you're playing your rookies and all that.
Yes. Anyway, so that could be kind of a real interesting way to get behind a guy that might not be high owned.
Cheeks, give me one more thought before we get out of here because we got to run in just a minute.
Yeah, well, that's all I got.
I appreciate it. Well, that was good stuff. I mean, look, hopefully we were helpful. There's a lot more. We'll do a show again. I'll do a live stream later, so we'll have a better idea of how to harness in. I also have a feeling we'll hear about some news. But what I would say is this is a 4-game slate that I would be trying to multi-enter on because there's plenty of great plays. that even on 8-game slates would usually be 20% owned or 15% owned or whatever, 10 times the ownership that they are right now. Guys like Will Barton are going to go overlooked. There's a lot of creative ways to play on this slate from a tournament perspective. So let's go ahead and do it. I'm going to multi-enter tonight. And yeah, good luck to everybody. We'll see you at the top of the leaderboards, and we will see you in a little bit with a FanDuel show. Or at least I will.
Sounds good.
All right.
Okay, so